Hi, so I just wanted to make a quick video to talk about change and why transformation is hard and disruptive. And while change can involve a decent amount of grace, it's also incredibly disruptive. And so one of the reasons that I'm bringing this up is this has been coming up a lot in the conversations and the communications I'm having, specifically as it relates to people who are reading the book and doing the practice themselves. And the reason I want to make this video, and I actually didn't do a lot to prepare for it, so it's going to be pretty freestyle. So let's see what happens here. Um, but but the thing is, it's like, so one way I want to frame this is that, as observers of other people, we can see their behaviors and like as like singular things, like that it's like, oh, you need to change this, you should change that. The way somebody acts, in, a social situation, and maybe like they're like loud, or maybe that, in a relationship, a person's like really diminutive, and, and just like the thing where it's like, oh, they should, kind of be what, like, whatever. The thing about a judgment of like a singular quality, when the reality, and this is relates to why specifically Parinama method leads to some pretty like disruptive changes, is that single things are not isolated. Like there's nothing that's just like one thing. I mean, one of the things about, like, say for example, somebody who's more diminutive in relationships, that dynamic can be tied to the comfort that those two people have with that particular way of interacting. And so for that person to change that and become more demanding, one of the things that happens is that something that that's very important to them, which is their, like say an intimate relationship, is now put into this, like put under pressure. Because if you're changing and the partner actually is not, one of the things is like, if this isn't a like slow, carefully recalibrated process, it's like if you just kind of show up and it's like there's a new sheriff in town, you're really disrupting all kinds of dynamics in the ecosystem of your life. So even things, like qualities that people have, to just isolate that, is that, maybe this, things have to do with a person's like kind of ability to function in certain situations, and to like just change one quality actually like really disrupts their entire like kind of sense of like being able to like handle something that otherwise would be overwhelming. I mean, the list goes, it's kind of infinite in this sense, because it's just the nature of changing things about ourselves, especially when we're talking about the level of transformation that we get into with the Parinama method, where we're addressing very core aspects of ourselves, as far as like, so talking about the third hub is about power, integrity of our individuality. So, like playing small, and even in like fourth hub, like hiding parts of ourselves, when that becomes untenable, when we start to expand in that, and expand in our expression of our personal power, expand in how much we're disclosing about ourselves, this can have all kinds of disruptions in all directions. I mean, maybe it makes neighbors uncomfortable. Maybe it makes an employer, like activated because, they're projecting this, that, and the other thing. Maybe it makes, I mean, the thing is that it's like the patience with oneself in the process of transformation, of realizing, it's like, of realizing that not only is it about your realignment into like the full integrity version of yourself, it's understanding that an entire life was built around an adapted being, like that our adaptations and holding patterns actually just like really are, a lot of our relationships are built around that. So I guess the reason I'm making this particular video is just hoping that just like a message of encouragement, which is to be patient and to go slow. You know, there's a lot of like this kind of consumer product thing of transformation just being like inherently graceful and sort of like delightful, and it's like light and love. But the thing is, like, we're actually breaking through patterns and sometimes becoming less pleasant for people, you know, upholding boundaries. People like it less. So it's especially, you know, when a lot of times if we like don't uphold them, it just makes life a lot easier for other people without them like necessarily having negative intent. It's just like we kind of allow it and they're like, oh, this is nice. And also the extra efforts that are required from, you know, I mean, like societally, even like offering, you know, giving people, you know, like you know, equitable wages or whatever, or what people need to survive. Like it's inconvenient to, you know, it's kind of like for people who are benefiting from that, where it's like, yeah, I like the other version a lot better. So there's a lot to kind of like, you know, in this kind of like breaking and resetting. And so yeah, I mean, I don't say this as a, you know, to try to discourage anyone from this type of process, but I think there is something to be said for being really patient and kind and compassionate with yourself for why you're not just like rushing into this, where it's like you're like the slow consideration of this type of process. I think there's definitely something to be said for that. And the other is to just be aware that these are consequences of transformation and change. It's not all, you know, sort of like love and light and, you know, this feels great all the time. Is like, it's a little bit, you know, it's definitely, I would say in the long term, there's a lot more of that. But in the short term, there can be some really uncomfortable reconciliations that can be incredibly overwhelming as they're happening. And so to be kind to yourself. So, okay, so, you know, I've talked enough about the problem, you know, the problem as it stands. But so the notion here, which is that like familiarity signals safety. So this is a thing where it's like first and second hub, mostly first, become really important for change management, which is being able to feel the solidity of like of yourself, of your like personhood or whatever. So it's going into first hub techniques and exercises specifically to being able to like feel into the safety of your body, which is an odd thing, but it's like grounding yourself in nature, paying attention to like your relationship with the ground, and you know, and digging a bit into that. I'll put the page numbers in the video for this, for some of the techniques and exercises that really support these feelings and creating this notion of like already being able to have a place to return to for safety. There's a number of, you know, there's a lot of techniques and practices to support this, but I think the key thing I want to bring in here is that when with change, it's just finding that like really like solid, comfy, cozy place within yourself to like the safe place to land, and also being very aware to the extent that's possible of like emotional disturbance, and being able to be like conscious to the extent that's possible that it's occurring, and which can be challenging for some people, but to see emotions arise and just be curious and patient and compassionate with them as they come up. So so in the book, page 49, you know, changes in relationships with others. It's, you know, relationships can struggle to right themselves when we change, and this can be difficult and sometimes painful. Some adaptive patterns, such as tolerating poor behavior from others or showing very little emotion, can act as load-bearing beams in existing and long-standing relationships. Even the change of becoming more loving and expecting that love to be returned may disrupt a relationship that has previously functioned around relatively low expectations for connection, empathy, and reciprocity. When you combine the enactment of boundaries with the self-awareness for needing them, such as telling a demanding loved one that you've reached your capacity for talking about an issue, they may have a negative reaction. Sometimes they will stop coming to you, which initially may feel like rejection. There can be a period of loneliness and even some grief as you allow yourself to see the true nature of some of the relationships in your life that may be holding you back. But the space you make with boundaries creates room for new, enriching, and fulfilling relationships. It just requires a little patience, which also can be challenging. Finding support with a therapist, uplifting communities, sometimes online, or spending more time with existing positive friends can be a lifesaver. This is a common theme that people ask to discuss during ongoing Parinama sessions. They experience positive transformation and joy, while partners, family, friends struggle with how the changes are impacting their own lives. For example, a man was showing more emotion and his wife told him she wanted her strong, silent husband back. He felt free and she wanted him back in his box. And they had to find a new way to relate to each other. Well, actually, you know what? That's written a lot better than it took me 10 minutes to describe in a freeform video. But so, in conclusion, I guess here in this freestyle video, like enter with awareness and compassion for yourself and for others, and for the others around you, and realize like these are kind of like agreements that we enter into with people without like, they're not formalized, but these agreements about like who we are when we start these like, whatever connection, whatever relationships we have, and then we're starting to alter that agreement. And so that's challenging. And it can be challenging when flipped. So, with that said, I'll put the pages in the comments here, but first hub techniques and exercises for like grounding and finding your kind of like sanctuary space is like really key for this stuff. And, with that said, like just like breathing. So deep breath in and out. And just taking a moment to tune into the soles of your feet, your bum, and just scan yourself from your feet, your ankles, move through your legs, up your knees, hips, kind of like feel like where your bum and your hips are. Bring yourself into your torso, kind of like feel the uprightness or whatever quality it's kind of like has right now that feels like soft or strong and hard. Bring yourself into your chest, lungs, inhale, exhale, ears, jaw, temple massage, tap between the eyes, give your head a little pat, and shake your hands out. And just, if you can, tell yourself that you're going to be patient. All right, until next time, bye.